All right, welcome to the Greenleaf Mayor Series. Today we're very excited. We have Dr. A from La Mesa, California joining us. So thank you for being here. This is a long distance one, so appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
So, you got a very interesting story here in working with basically a big city that's also very close to San Diego, so a huge city, right? But,
Yes.
tell us a little bit about it. It's 60,000 people. It's
A little over 60,000. We were founded in 1912. We're a general law city, which means we are not a charter city, so we follow the laws of the state of California. And we border San Diego, and we have three major freeways that traverse our city. Also, the San Diego trolley system, which is an above ground light rail system that comes through La Mesa, and we have 5 stops. And so the trolley comes through 3 freeways, and we're bordered by 4 cities out of the 18 cities in the county of San Diego. So, but San Diego is our biggest neighbor.
Yeah, very cool. So we were looking at the map, just looking around. There's no golf courses.
What's that about?
We used to have a municipal golf course in our city, and the company that was running it for us asked to get out of their lease 6 years ago, just because the cost of water and keeping green was so costly, and they weren't getting the flow. It was a par 3 executive course, and so we have flipped that into a municipal park now, and we're splitting it. We split it in half. Part of it's a dog park. The other part is a general park. And then also there's a garden, community garden that is now in that park as well.
So better than golf? More use?
Better. Well, I like the golf course, but since I was one of the only few people using it, it wasn't cost effective. We took over the lease, and we realized how hard it was to keep the greens green, so.
Man. Well, so you've been involved with the city for a huge part of your professional career, right? You were on city council.
20 years. Yeah, this is 20 years for me. I was elected in 2006. Prior to that, I served on the Park and Rec Commission. And prior to that, I volunteered in the city. I was born and raised here, parents, both teachers, and I became a teacher as well and taught in this city at 4 different schools.
Very cool. Yeah, I think it's interesting. We always want to discuss and learn about how are people mentoring others, how are you building leaders, building people for tomorrow. You've basically been doing that your whole career. So I was really excited to hear about the school that you eventually took your doctoral thesis and launched that as a school program, or not as a school program, as a whole school, in your city prior to or any of that stuff, right?
Right. And the school district was open to it, and I obviously had good relations with the superintendent, who I had met privately with before we launched it, to the school board, who ultimately approved taking a traditional junior high 7-8, and we turned it into a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 visual performing arts magnet school. But it increased enrollment from 500 to 1,100 with a waiting list. And so we're getting people from all over the county now that want to come to that school. And the main focus of the school is it's mostly modeled after one of the nonprofits I run, a youth theater for character and leadership, and teaching kids to be kind and really teaching them manners and all of the different things that we want to see people exhibit in the workforce. That there seems to be a disconnect sometimes when students leave high school and college and they have to be trained. And so we're trying to instill those values at an early age, so they're hardwired in before kids get to that level.
And so this new school was in La Mesa, but you have students from outside of La Mesa that actually attend it, and it's a destination school?
It was. We had one family that actually bought a house in La Mesa. They moved from the North County, and they wanted their daughter to be here so badly. After we had tours before we launched the school, and they wanted their daughter to be in the school, that they actually sold their home and bought a home in La Mesa.
Wow. And has the school is still open?
Yes, still operating. La Mesa Arts Academy. It's thriving, and it grows. We added, in addition to visual art and music and dance and theater, we added culinary arts. We added some of the other electives were forensics. There was a whole course on finance and children learning about finance and how to bank and all the different things. Usually, is basically a literacy class on finance and what the stock market is and what any of that means and why it's important to them, and understanding about how, if you start saving now, what that can mean for you in 50 years. It's hard for a teenager or a 10-year-old to think about what 50 years means. But when you roll it out and you say, you save this much now at 10 years old, when you're 60, you'll have this much. That really has some impact in their thinking.
I'm a big believer in making sure, number one, we're teaching financial literacy in schools. And then number two, how do we actually make good human beings? Because one of my, I guess I call this one of my old man complaints, is that leaders today do not necessarily model leadership behavior. And so there's a whole generation of kids growing up that look at leadership in this, I would call it somewhat, not or negative leadership, but that's what they've seen and that's what they've grown up with, and so they think it's normal. And we grew up with all sorts of, we grew up with. You're 2 years older than me. I did look it up, so we're about the same age. Dave's way younger, I think.
Yeah.
Even though I have more hair, but we grew up.
You knocked on both of us, man.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. But we grew up where ethics and we had Reagan, 2 Bushes. Let's forget about Clinton for a second, but Obama. We had leaders who just talked about morals and just being good people, basically following a religion of the choice, and I think we've lost a lot of that, and so that's kind of one of my old man complaints these days.
Well, there's definitely, children sniff out hypocrisy, and so if you're an adult that's saying one thing and doing something different, they'll sniff that out. And also trying to get them to look inward, and if they're going to pick people to model their lives after, pick people that they're 1 degree of separation, as opposed to some pop star or actor that they don't really know. And but that's always been a problem in society. People look at fame and they worship that, but trying to get kids to look at other models or examples in their life that they have 1 degree of separation from: the Girl Scout leader, their baseball coach, their teacher, their parents, those type of things.
Yeah. And what grades is the school now?
It was 7, 8. Now it's 4 through 8.
4th through 8th. Yeah. Wow. That's all. Yeah. I mean, that sounds excellent. We don't hear very often of people starting, magnet schools that have done so well and taken that approach to it. So
you came to somebody with, hey, I have this crazy idea. I want to take this school and do this. So how did that whole process look like?
I took my doctoral dissertation, and so I had all the data and I had all the research to back up what I was saying, but also because I run a youth theater that's 4 through 8th, I have the data to support that, and I had that in real time. So it wasn't just theoretical. I could say, here's what I'm doing in real time every year for 6 months. We go through a rehearsal process, and it's based around theater. We use that as the mechanism to teach these skills, but truly we could use anything. We could be gardening or playing badminton or playing baseball or whatever. It's the skills that we were attaching to the activity. The activity is secondary. It's the skills that made it strong. And so when the district heard that, and most of the school board, I had either been their children's teacher or they had gone through my private nonprofit volunteer program. And so they knew what the results already were. So I did have an advantage as far as being approved. And not only did it obviously bolster the numbers at the school, but like anything else, it had a ripple effect for people that wanted to move into that area, either apartments or condominiums or even homes. People were going to come into that area, and anytime you bring that many more people in, it's going to affect the local economy in a small way. I'm not over dramatizing this, but it's that people are going to shop at the local stores and get gas at the local gas station and all those things. So anytime that you can increase enrollment at a school, it's going to help the community overall.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned you guys didn't build a new school, you took over an existing one.
Correct.
La Mesa in general is very developed.
We're very much built. So anytime that you want to develop, you either have to find open space, which is very rare, or you have to tear down to build. And that's what's going on now, is we have developers coming in and they're wanting to repurpose something. Sometimes it's a business and then it becomes housing. Sometimes it's an adjacent parking lot and they want to build something. Currently, the trolley station is not owned by the city of La Mesa. It's owned by the Metro Transit System, but they have a parking lot that is underutilized. And so they're currently developing a housing on that parking lot to sit right on the transit corridor.
Well, Dave,
So-
I heard he's got a golf course for sale, though. Doesn't he have a golf course for sale?
No, we do not. That's going to stay. We're never going to sell.
So we were looking at other stuff too, like the Grossmont development. Is that going to be redeveloped some? Or are they working on that?
It is the company that bought Grossmont Center. So Grossmont Center was a shopping mall, brick and mortar, in the same model, and it opened in the early 60s, 62, and obviously it flourished in the 80s like all malls did in the 90s, and then it started to taper off. So a company, Federal, they're redeveloping it, and the first part of the redevelopment is the facades. So they're doing the western part of the shopping mall and doing all new facades, and then they're going to start doing things in the interior and try to bring some bigger clients in. It does have some anchor stores. There's a Target, a Walmart. There are quite a few of the restaurants. If you go there on the weekend, they're quite busy. They are going to redo the movie theater. They're tearing down the old movie theater. They're going to build a new one. So lots is going on there because they see there's the resurgence in brick and mortar, like everything, things on a pendulum and they swing back. I mean, look at the different vinyl record stores that have opened around the county. Just in La Mesa alone, we have one, and who thought vinyl would ever come back? But things like that do happen. So I think Grossmont Center is going to be an anchor, and they've always been a big contributor to our tax base with regards to sales tax. They're not, obviously the biggest, and I can't discuss who's the biggest, but they've always been a big contributor, and we're hoping that they'll come back on as they start renting out some of the empty space within the mall.
And yourself, they have the hospital. That was one of your major economic centers, and your hospital is also another major economic center.
It is, and we're glad to have the hospital in La Mesa. So Grossmont Hospital has been there for 70 years, and they have built some new buildings as donors have come on, a new cardiology department, a new neurological department. And so there's some new buildings on that campus. And they also took over, it was 30 years ago, they took over the elementary school there, Briar Patch. And it's a center for classrooms for patients, but also for nurses and any of the other staff that needs to be in serviced. And so that's all part of that campus. And they also, the park there, we redeveloped the park 15 years ago, Briarcrest Park, and it's adjacent to the new hospital boardroom and meeting room. And so within that campus, a developer came in and built an assisted living facility, and it's a threefold assisted living. It has general senior living, then it has assisted living, then it has convalescent care. So all within the same building, and it's adjacent to the hospital. One of the other things, and I know people that don't have elderly parents might not know this, but where it's located off a freeway, if it's convenient, if you have a center like that, or if you have a facility like that that's deep off of a freeway, the chances of family visiting, it's going to be more difficult for them to visit. But when it's accessible, it's going to make it more convenient for families to visit. And so all of those things need to be taken into consideration when development is going to be pursued.
So one thing we talk about is, like, why do people come to your city? So they're coming to the city. I mean, a few parents are coming to go to your.
You know what? So I grew up in the city, and it was considered a sleepy city, and that our mean age was, people would joke and say that your mean age is 150. Of course that's not true, but we did have a lot of seniors that had lived here because they had just through matriculation, and not a lot of younger people were coming here. And if you're familiar with Proposition 13, it was a proposition that was launched in 1978. And what it said was your property tax couldn't be reassessed every year based on the market. It only could go up 2% every year in California, which meant, it was great for homeowners. Obviously, it hurt the cities that had a high percentage of Prop 13 homes. But what it did was it really encouraged people to stay in their homes. So people in La Mesa started aging out in their homes. We started redeveloping the city as a whole about 20 years ago. And that meant we were going to try to bring new businesses in. And as we started doing that, and we started with our downtown, our downtown is geographically, it's unique because it's a street, it's a strip of about a mile, and it's just one lane either way, and it's got a diagonal parking, and all the shops are right there. And people compare it to Mayberry and whatever that means, but it's a very quaint city street within a city that's adjacent to a metropolis. And so it's unique in that way. So one of the things we did is in 2013, we did an entire downtown renovation. So we did a streetscape from basically, if you're looking at the businesses, from doorway to doorway all across. So we redid all the streets, new sidewalks, we put trees in, we redeveloped everything. And it was an enormous undertaking because we kept the businesses open. So we did it in compartments, but focusing on that, and that's not the only part of La Mesa is the village, but that's kind of what we're known for. If everybody has what they're known for, that's one of the things we're known for. But what it did was it brought people into La Mesa, and that brought younger families in. And so we started being seen as, air quotes, hip. And I've never thought of La Mesa as hip, but that's what happened. And so surrounding neighborhoods where younger people were living, they started considering La Mesa. And so our mean age has gone down, and we have very, very younger families and younger people, not just families, have moved into La Mesa because we rebranded ourselves.
Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So, I mean, people think California, they think it's hard to get anything permitted and done, but it sounds like you have done a bunch of projects over the past 10
our city manager, probably one of the best things that I've done in my 20 years was hire our city manager. He has been with the city for over 20 years. He was the director of public works. But his attitude when he came in is he wanted to have a culture of yes, meaning as people come to the city, instead of your first answer being no, try to help them find a pathway to their goals. And whether that's business or it's a homeowner or anything else. Now, you can't say yes to everything, and he understands that. That's not what he's saying, because people can't put chicken wire up and put spackle on it and call it an addition to your house. But if someone has an idea and they're not well versed, if they're a homeowner and they don't know how to go about it, let's try to help them find a pathway. If they're a business, don't be a barricade. We still have to follow the laws of California and the United States, but let's try to help them find a pathway to achieving their goals.
Yeah. How do you see like communication between you, the city manager, and citizens within the city? Like, what's the best way for that dialogue to happen?
So because we're a small city and because I was a teacher, I saw 1,100 constituents every day. And so I always they joke because I have a little notepad in my pocket. And they said, don't put me on the notepad. And I said, I'm not writing names down. What I would do is, as people came up to me, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, whoever it was, because I was visible, right? I'm in charge of the traffic outside the school. And so people would come up and everything turned into a town hall meeting. So that was my first line of communication. And then I'm out in the community all the time. I have a car, but I also drive a golf cart around the city as well. And so at the grocery store, any place else. Our city manager, this is unique. Our city manager lives in our city. Most city managers, most city employees don't live in the city that they service. And so he lives right here. He's very visible as well. And so there's that line of communication. Also, we return emails and phone calls and everything else, so it's exactly what you would think a small town would be, is it's easy to talk to your elected officials. And it's easy to talk to the employees of the city who, and you know this because you're an elected person, they run the operation, right? The employees do it. The electeds don't do it.
So very important question. How decked out is your golf cart?
Not decked out. We have a Flag Day parade coming up in 2 weeks. So I'll put bunting on it because it's America's 250th. So we'll do all sorts of fun things, but it's decked out in the sense that it's street legal and I have lights on it and turn signals and and those kind of things. But
No big rims and chrome trim.
no, nothing like that.
Okay. Well, I mean, it'd be more memorable if you were to have a golf cart that had that kind of,
So I had
flash
the
on.
first golf cart in the city, 2002. I was the first registered golf cart, and now there's 26 of us.
And so you could drive on all the roads in the city as long as it's not highway?
Anything that's posted 35 or under, because the golf cart goes 25, and so you can't go on any street that's over 35 posted.
And how often are people honking at you and then they realize, oh, I just talked to the mayor?
Oh, they don't. I try to stay out of people's way, but no, I get honked at, and and because I'm a teacher in the city, it's a good bet that anybody that I meet, I either was their teacher, or I had their child as a teacher, or I had their neighbor's child as a teacher.
So pretty much it was really easy for you to be mayor because you were already the unofficial mayor of your
Well,
city
you could
form.
say that. My mom also taught in this district for 35 years, and so they still see her when she goes to the grocery store. So, and because we have a unique last name, I wouldn't say it was easy, because nothing's really easy, but it gave me an advantage.
Yeah. So you mentioned you were retired from teaching this past year,
Yes.
right? Yeah, and you're on your third term as mayor. So when is the end of your third term?
January 27. So I'm termed out.
Yeah. Then where does La Mesa go?
It keeps going. There'll be council members and whoever runs for mayor next, and I'm for term limits. I think, especially in local government. Local government's supposed to be nonpartisan, which I agree with. I'm an independent, and I think that elected should be, because you have to represent everyone. But I believe in term limits because I think that you have an unfair advantage as an incumbent, and especially in small towns that are doing well, it's the staff that's doing well. And so you could, theoretically serve your entire life. I think it's good to have turnover.
Yeah.
You're serving your entire life on the coattails of your staff doing a good job, basically.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And every time that a council member has an initiative and they have an idea, they're not the ones executing it. It's the staff having to do it. And the public doesn't see that. And many times the council doesn't see that. And so that's one of my, I think, benefits of being a teacher. I see myself as an educator first. So I try to educate the public, especially in difference to all of the erroneous behavior that's online. And I don't think it's necessarily intentional, but we have different Facebook pages that serve La Mesa that are unofficial that people have started, and I don't go on those, but people have shared things with me. And again, I don't think it's done intentionally to spread things that are non-truths. But if you and I are talking and you say, wouldn't it be great if the San Diego Chargers, the Los Angeles Chargers, moved to La Mesa? And I said, that would be great. And someone overheard us, that rumor spreads. And that's an actual story. Grossmont Center, 2012, someone came to me very concerned because they heard that we were going to tear down the center and turn it into the next Charger stadium.
That would be good for tourism, but
yeah,
we'd love to have the Chargers back in San Diego, but that's not going to happen. But my point is, as an educator, that's what I try to do, is combat all of that with the truth and try to tell them, no, this is what's happening. And sometimes, by the way, the public doesn't, people don't like what the truth is, especially when it comes to development. I'm sure you're aware of that as people in the industry, that when development comes, sometimes we don't have a choice. In California, there's a law that's called density bonus, and I'll try to boil it down. If you're a developer, and let's just say that you're going to build 100 units, 10% of those have to be at 20% market value. So if you're renting each one for $100, 10% of them you have to rent for $80. And so with that, if you do qualify for density bonus, you can forego the city's regulation. So our regulation is you can't have more than 4 stories. If you wanted to build 10 stories, you could. Our regulation is that you have to have 1 parking spot for each dwelling. You can come in and say, I'm not going to have any parking spots. So density bonus is an encouragement for the developer, but it is not favored by the public, and the public doesn't understand that. So as apartment buildings are going up in La Mesa, there's been a pushback from the public, angry with local government, and some of them, or most of them, don't know that we don't have authority in this matter.
So one of the interesting things we're talking about locally at Greenleaf are ADUs and tiny homes.
Yeah.
You guys have a tiny home or ADU strategy in La
We
Mesa right
do
now?
because it's a state law. And so we had to come up with something. And what we've done is we have four pre-approved standard sets of plans. So you can choose one of those and they're pre-approved, or you can try to get your own. But we try to caution people before they start putting up ADUs, before you get a planner that's guaranteeing that this is going to happen, check with the city, because the topography of your backyard might not accommodate an ADU, right? And so we try to trying to educate the public on everything that we can. So we do have to have a plan for ADUs, and we do. And many people have been taking advantage of those.
And so is it mostly backyard ADUs, or are you actually separating parcels and cutting up parcels for ADUs?
Mostly backyard. There's been a few parcels because our city, if you were to drive through our city, some of our city looks like it was mapped out on a grid, sidewalks, and then other parts look very rural. And so some of those lots have been bifurcated because they're odd shaped lots, and they have a back entrance. And so it makes sense to have an ADU and to split the lot, but mostly they're backyard ADUs, and they're either renting or they're used for exactly what ADUs used to be for senior living for people within the family.
So
That's why we call them granny flats, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have the right topography and you have enough space, are there 4 basically pre-approved plans that they say, hey, I want to build option 2? And is that kind of like a fast track to getting approved?
It absolutely is. So we've approved these 4 plans the city has. And so if you choose whatever option you choose, you're fast track through.
And is it just a footprint and a floor plan, and you change the roof line, or you could change the siding, or is it just like you have a bunch of buildings around the city that look the same?
No, there's some changes. You can change some of the aesthetics of it, but it's the floor plan and the height.
Floor plan,
Yeah.
got it.
So if a homeowner comes to you and says, hey, here's what I want to do, and the things check out, like they have the space, they have the drainage, like that's there, how long would that approval process be?
Well, you get into a line, obviously, right? And so we only have so much staff at the city. So, it could take up to a year depending on how many people are ahead of you. So we're trying to do our best, but that's one department in the city. And that's the same department that serves every other developer that's doing everything else, whether they're refabbing a business, opening a restaurant, building a condominium, so it all goes through the same department because we're a small city. So it could take longer, and you know how it is, things take long. We try not to have bureaucracy get in the way.
Yeah.
So does your city manager, have you started to review plans to help speed things up for your approval process?
Do I review plans?
As your city
I
manager
do
said, hey,
scenic design for theaters. You don't want me building anything because it's going to look like something from the front, but behind it's going to be made of 1-bys. So
This could be like a stage.
for the theater. So I do those plans, but no, I'm not reviewing any plans.
I got you. And so, we can't help but notice, but you've got some fun stuff on your back shelf right now. So is that part of your old theater days? I guess maybe
That was mostly it's from my second grade days. When I taught second grade, I had different things around my classroom to capture the students' attention. And so those are some of the things. I have a picture. People always wonder why I have a picture of a Cardinal punting. That was my brother. He punted for the Cardinals. And so yeah, I have those things. And I am a Star Wars fan too. And I am much older than you. I saw it in the movie theater.
No, much older than Dave, not older than me.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
Dave saw it on repeat.
All right. Yeah.
But I remember that Star Wars was in the movie theater, and then what year was Star Wars? Do you remember that?
77.
Yeah.
77. So 1977. Yeah, I was.
That was like 77, 80, 82, I think, were the
I
years.
was 9 and 77.
So 77, 80, and 83 were the first 3 movies.
Yeah, and there's a new Star Wars movie that just came out. I saw Mandalorian just came out.
I have not seen it. I'm still in the midst of trying to catch up with all the other things. It's hard there's so much streaming. It's hard to keep up with everything.
They made like 50 TV shows.
Yeah, right.
They had like one movie every 2 or 3 years, and then they made 50 different TV shows. You're like, how are you going to watch all that stuff?
Yeah,
money.
just
Yeah.
money and anything Star Wars or anything Star Trek. There's never a bad Star Wars. There's never a bad Star Trek, no matter what anybody says ever. There is never a bad either one. Yeah.
Man.
So sorry, Dave. I just how I
I'll
feel.
let you have that debate on another time.
Yeah, that one can ruffle some feathers right there, Andrew.
Yeah, right.
Be careful with that one. But, man. So what's next for La Mesa? What do you kind of see happening over the next 5 to 10 years in their kind of the city plan and what they want to, see happen?
Well, I think as we have housing requirements from the state, and we're trying to meet those. But I'd like to see more of a balance and not just have apartments come in and indifference to, and nothing against developers, but I think that's part of some of the fear from our local residents that it's going to turn into surrounding cities that have nothing but apartments. I don't want to see that either. So I'd like to see more of a balance and encourage people to maybe have more mixed use and develop on a corridor that would encourage that type of development. So we have a couple of corridors that come into our city from the west, from San Diego, and they would be better suited for a bigger development because they're not in a residential area. But I like the idea of mixed use and having living above retail. And so that's one of the things. The other thing is trying to bring new businesses in. So we're always scouting and trying to get people to come in. And so as we've redeveloped the city and as we've kind of rebranded ourselves, we're getting new businesses in. And I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but people get excited about things like, I know that you probably don't have this yet, but it's probably gonna, if it goes national, we have something called In-N-Out Burger, and it's a chain that came from Los Angeles, and their main headquarters was in Irvine, and now the owner, she just moved their headquarters to Tennessee. But they're a family-owned chain, and so it's hard to get those in your city. And so one of them's coming to La Mesa, and we're getting an ice cream shop. And I think those type of things for the future, trying to go out and scout businesses that the people in the community want. What does it come down to? I mean, you live in a dwelling, you live in a box, and your life is about, government should, part of what we're doing besides efficiency and making sure that we have public safety as our number one priority, but there should be some element that we're trying to create some avenue for happiness, right? That people are happy where they are and that they're happy with their surroundings. And that, so we're trying to do that, I think, in La Mesa, is to try to create a city that people have, that are wanting, and that comes down to places to go. And so that,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, and with that, we're trying to open 2 new parks as well, because people on the western part of our city are saying, when I hear them, they say, we don't have a park near us. Well, we just purchased a piece of property just 2014 from the county, and we're trying to find a way to develop that into a public park.
So you touched on this before, but like you have the park, you have the golf course that you redeveloped into like a dog park and a park. And then, how does La Mesa do as far as activities, outdoor things to do? So on the weekend, if you're bicycling or you're a runner or you want to run trails, what type of amenities does La Mesa have?
We have 14 parks, and we have a very vibrant park and rec department. We have a municipal pool. Not many cities have a municipal pool. So we do have activities, and we do put a lot of emphasis into the park and rec department. We also have a foundation that explicitly runs raises money for those programs. And so that's an important part. And so, for instance, the summer's coming up. We have a concert series, a 6-part concert series in the months of June and July in one of our bigger parks, where we have a free concert every Sunday. We have movie night starting a week from Friday, where we show movies in the park for free. We have a Flag Day parade coming up on the 13th that's been going on for quite a while. But we do try to have activities. One of our biggest activities that La Mesa has gotten to be known for over the past 50 years is the Oktoberfest. And you're wondering, do we have any ties to Germany? No. I think the Chamber of Commerce at that time in the early 70s wanted to have a beer garden. And so, they had the Oktoberfest. It's become the largest Oktoberfest west of the Mississippi. So you get about close to 150,000 people that come into our city over a 3-day period. And because of the popularity of shutting down the streets for those 3 days was evident, we have now a farmer's market every Friday. And
Oh,
so we close off an area of the street every Friday. And people do like to come down to street fairs and things of that nature. So that's what's going on. In that area, that in the La Mesa Boulevard to 4th is our village. Currently, as we're speaking right now, a downtown sign is being installed. So the village merchants came up with an idea. They fundraised. We helped them do some other things, and they developed a downtown sign. And so currently today, June 2nd, there's a crane downtown, and they're installing the gateway sign.
very exciting, very exciting. And do you have a La Mesa half marathon every year?
No,
It can
no,
be
we
down and backing up and down the strip right there.
no,
It's
yeah,
one
right.
run,
Yeah,
back and
no, we
forth
could.
15 times.
No, but we do have a lot. We have a senior center, adult enrichment center, we call it. And so we work closely with Grossmont Hospital and the health agencies to provide activities for our seniors. We have a very vibrant senior softball league from 55 to 105, and it's on our municipal Little League field. And anytime during the week you drive by, you're going to see lots of teams playing.
Yeah.
55 plus senior league, that really hurt. That hurt.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know, right?
Cool.
I'm eligible. So anyways, there's lots of activities in La Mesa. And I think as we move forward to keep those type of things going and to keep all the programs to keep people engaged, right? So everybody's engagement level, we need lots of on-ramps for the city for different people to engage at the level that they want to engage. My goal is that our big push is to build a new city hall, a new civic center where we're sitting now, because this building was built in 55. And so we have a relatively new library and a new police department and fire department. But this building is very old. And so what we'd like to do is build a new city hall, move the post office. The post office is bigger than it needs to be, and then expand the library. It's right now 10,000 square feet, and expand it to 17,000 square feet. So they can have a community room, so they can have events there beyond the library, a community room to have music events or public speakers or things like that. But that's what the goal is. So we're in development right now with our first series of plans to have a new city hall.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
It's a big undertaking.
Andrew's going to petition you. Maybe you could do the beer mile challenge. If you've got Oktoberfest, you got a 1 mile strip, that could be instead of the half marathon.
I run a lot, and Dave pretends to run a lot. He runs marathons like once every 10 years, and he does it faster than me.
Maybe not a run. Maybe you can call it a stagger.
How about one last question, Dave?
Yes, sir.
Dr. A is also an educator, so this would be an interesting one for him. But how do you feel about AI and education and AI as a tool inside city government and overall?
I think it can be used for good, like anything, but like many things in our society, we let the toothpaste out of the tube before we were ready. Just like cellular phones and giving every child all the information to everything in the world all at once. That was an enormous mistake with smartphones, but that is gotten out of the bag and we can't stuff it back in. With AI, same thing. We weren't ready for it. And so it's being used for all. What I'm going to say is anything can be used for good or bad. But when you have something like AI or cellular phone technology, unfortunately, humans are humans. And so it's like water on concrete. It's going to find every crack and crevice. And so we're never ready for it. And so with AI, I think that we're going to find uses, and we're working on that right now in local municipalities to better serve the community, using AI to better serve the community. But like anything, we need to have guardrails, and we're always kind of playing catch up. So I'm encouraged of what it can do, but I'm frightened about what people can use it for.
Yeah, in Georgia, we actually passed legislation that took phones away from middle schoolers a little bit ago, and we just did it for high schoolers. And so now there's rules about using cell phones in middle and high school now in the state of Georgia. I don't know if California's done.
We did in California. It's not really being enforced because it's hard, obviously. And so what you have is a parent population that grew up in the 90s, and they feel that it's their child's right to have a phone, so they know exactly where their child is every second. And I understand that. I understand you want to know where your child is and everything like that. But I think about, so since you and I are close in age, what you did on a typical summer day, and were you in your house all the time? How much autonomy did you have from your parents? and you made it to the age that you are. And I know that there's a perception that the world's a more dangerous place. It could be seen that way because of the humans in it, but also it's because we're not allowing children to explore and find out things. And so what we do just in my theater, even though it has nothing to do with theater, I let them come up with a game on their own in groups, just like we used to do. You'd be with your friends and you came up with a game. You were the referee, you were the commissioner, you were the enforcer of the rules. There were no parents coming. You had to work on conflict resolution, all the other things. When we've taken those things out, we've sterilized their environment. That's why we have some other problems that have arisen. I'm sure it was done for the greater good. We thought, well, if the adults can be in control, we can control this. But there's some things that naturally happen. And so as far as being an educator and what you were just talking about, all of those things have repercussions. So AI right now has repercussions in the classroom, right? So teachers are having to scramble hard and make up rules for, you have a person that's writing a paper and they're writing it at a second grade level, and then they turn in a paper the next day and it's at a college level. There's no way to call them on it, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that's a small hazard of AI, and that's kind of a victimless crime. It's worse when people are taking over identities and they're using photos. So again, we're trying to keep up with everything. So, but I do think AI has a place in local government to make things better for the user, for the citizens.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. All righty. Well, that kind of wraps up what we had. We need to get out there for Oktoberfest, Andrew.
And a
Yeah.
half marathon, the first annual La Mesa half marathon.
There's gonna be an entry of one. Andrew just run. Who's this guy running up and down the street?
All right, I'll pin a blue ribbon on you. That's wonderful.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, yes, great.
All right.
Awesome.
All right, I appreciate your time. It was nice meeting you both. Take care of yourselves.
Thank
I
you
was
very
gonna
much
meet you
for
too.
talking to us.